If you're a fan of the Terminator movies, you might have asked yourself from time to time, could this really happen? If so, then this Brains Byte Back episode is for you. In this episode, we want to explore if the Terminator could ever become a reality, and what other forms of AI weapons and warfare we might see in the near future. To do this, we are joined by an advanced concept science and technology research and development engineer who has been associated with advanced weapons concepts involving robotics and computerized weapon systems since 1982, Marshall Barnes. Marshall began his career working on ideas for anti-submarine warfare and was a recruitment target by the attorney of armed tech James Maxwell. In 2008, he published a paper through Scientific America's blog community on current and future weapon systems that was scrubbed off the internet by DARPA because it revealed too much. Marshall kicks off the episode by explaining how he first got started in the technological weapon space and how a love for sci-fi inspired him to design futuristic weapons. He also breaks down how he would revise classic Star Wars weapons and vehicles to make them more effective, and how his career was launched by a desire to create his own sci-fi movie. We also discuss a recent BBC article titled "Biden Urged to Back AI Weapons to Counter China and Russia Threats," and Marshall shares his thoughts on why he is not afraid of AI becoming self-aware. He also discusses China's super soldier program and how he likes to contemplate countermeasures against new technological weapons from foreign threats as a hobby in his free time. If you like this episode, then some previous episodes of Brain Byte Back you should listen to are UFO technology, ancient civilizations and unexplained mysteries, modern warfare technology with ex-military sergeant turned tech CEO, and how accurate is Mr. Robot, the technology and the psychology. And don't forget to follow Brains Byte Back on your favorite podcast platforms, including YouTube. And we now have a Brains Byte Back subreddit. You can find it by typing in reddit.com/r/brainsbyteback. And as always, that's Byte with a Y. Now enjoy the episode.
All right, my name is Marshall Barnes. A lot of times you'll see my work title after my name, which is R&D ENG, which stands for Research and Development Engineer. And I work in the advanced concept science and technology area. What does that mean? That means I do the things that people think are probably close to impossible, if not impossible, and try to figure out a way to make them happen, and then see if there's a way to have fun and make money off of them. So I'm going to be here in this interview that is going to sound really wild to some of your listeners, particularly because I think they're probably younger than me. I sound young, but I'm not that young. But I sent you a photo to back up a couple of things I'm going to tell you.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll include this on the website on the sociable.co on
Sure.
the article. We'll add that picture there. And I'm really happy to have you on here because you seem like you have a really rich background in this. And yeah, just looking at your pitch that I received from you regarding the stuff that you've done, it definitely seems that you're touching on the impossible and the crazy. And I'm really happy to get into this with you today. But this episode is dedicated, inspired essentially by the Terminator, and I really wanted to do an episode on the idea of if the Terminator could ever become a reality, and that's the question I want to start with today. And by the Terminator, I mean like humanoid robots that are the next generation of soldiers on the battlefield. So how realistic is this, and are we close to it at all, Marshall?
Well, I can't tell you if we're close to it, completely. In other words, all right, first let me go to that photo because it is connected to what I'm getting ready to tell you, okay? All right, as a lot of your listeners probably know, there's like a open world or open source world, and then there's like a black world, meaning like the secret, top secret, covert stuff. And that's why I can't tell you for certain what the status of a predator type robot is, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And because that would be what you would call, covert or top secret, that kind of thing. The photo I sent you basically comes from my work in the entertainment industry and a low budget level back in 1983. And there's a one photo that has like kind of like a blade that's glowing white, okay, like a lightsaber. And then underneath that, there's one where I can't remember who it is, but there's someone shooting a gun. You can see like a laser bolt flying out of the muzzle of the gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then below that one is me standing with a gentleman. And that guy is the one, and I can't remember his name. I should have had it in my head, but he was the guy that played Greedo in the movie Star Wars. And in the first episode, he was the one that Han Solo shot in the cantina bar. All right, they got into the argument at the table, and then, the blasters came out, and he was the one that got shot. That guy took a picture with me because I showed him video from 1983, which is where those stills come from, where we're doing stuff that's like in Star Wars. But we were doing it, I figured out a way to do it without the rotoscoping. In other words, how they did it. We didn't shoot that on film, and we didn't use rotoscoping the way it was done at that time. We used something I came up with, which is basically digital effects, except for the blade. The blade was actually real. It was a stunt blade, and we made a blade that lit up, as you can tell if you see the picture. Mm-hmm. And it was in action. That photo was taken in action. What we did essentially was we created a plastic hollow sword that we attached a handle to, and the handle had actual power going to it, AC power. And it had inside the plastic sword was a cylindrical one, and we could flip the sucker on, and it would glow up just like you see it in the picture. So what we would do is we would shoot a scene where somebody's swinging a real sword, okay? Mm-hmm. And then what happens is as they got close to the target, then we would say cut, and then we'd bring out the prop sword, the one that you actually see the glowing blade with, and then we would insert that into the person's hand, then continue, and then put it all together in the editing. So in the editing, the final thing is you see someone swinging a real blade, and then as it gets close to the target, we cut to the different shot, and now the blade's lit up and it's doing what it's supposed to do, okay? Mm-hmm. So the reason we did that is because in real life, we didn't like the idea of the lightsaber because the lightsaber is just too dangerous of a weapon to have, if you can envision, as they did in movies, ultimately. As you have to remember, I'm talking about 1983, 84 time period. Mm-hmm. We didn't like the idea of the lightsaber if there's a bunch of guys swinging a blade around, and we were just thinking, yeah, this thing is so dangerous. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So we included in the storyline the idea of a sensor in the handle of the actual real sword, okay? And as you swung towards your target, it could sense it was getting close to the target, and then it would energize the blade with plasma, which is what was glowing. And then there you got your more effective weapon. All right, so this gives you an idea of kind of like where my mind was at back in the 80s, which is back where I was also offered an opportunity to get involved with an actual company that was going to come up with military weapons. And one of those things had to do with robotics. Mm-hmm. I can't go into the exact detail of what it was because as far as I know, it's still classified. But at the time that I knew about this thing, it was classified top secret. And they just wanted to know, could I figure out a way to kill this thing without using standard military weapons? The reason this whole thing came about was because this attorney I was talking to, who represented this military contractor company, this guy, I was originally talking to him to try to raise money to make my own little movie, okay? That's what the photos were all about. So he was reading my treatment for my movie. I think he was blown away by the sophistication of the weaponry. And that's why he wanted to recruit me for his company. And I'll tell you, here's a real good example, okay, of where my head is at. And this is something again, we're talking 83, 84. So I'm more advanced now than I was then. Mm-hmm. But when I saw the Star Wars film, the first one, which is, of course, in 77, I was struck by the fact that, okay, wait a minute. These people, they have laser beams, they got Death Stars, they've got all this stuff. What the hell are they doing flying planes that, they fly through the trench of the Death Star, and they got the TIE fighters coming in behind them. And they're bobbing around trying to block the TIE fighters. That's their way of doing defense. I mean, and so I came up with a thing where you have laser guns in the back of the X-Wings, okay, or whatever your fighter plane is going to be. And on them is a camera, and the camera is attached to a computer. And inside a computer are the images or, the silhouettes of every known enemy fighter and friendly fighter that they know there, okay? So if you were to take that technology and put that in the movie, now when the TIE fighters come flying in behind the X-Wings have guns in the back, and the guns have the cameras. And it's whoa, here comes a TIE fighter. And it goes to the computer. Computer operates the gun and blows the TIE fighter away. Then you don't have a problem. I mean, that to me is just common sense. So that's where my head is when it comes to all these ideas we're going to talk about. Essentially, I'm ahead of everybody else. So in terms of the robots, sure, I could, if somebody wanted to pay me to build a Terminator robot, I mean, I would have to get help in terms of the actual robotics part of it, but how to make it do what it's supposed to do as a weapon system, as an autonomous weapon system, sure, I could do that. I could do that now. So I can't tell you where everyone else is. I can't tell you where the Pentagon is. I can't tell you what, North Korea is doing because I don't have access to all that classified information. Theoretically, they could be doing a lot. I mean, because you got to remember, in '83, I saw something about robotics that was related to warfare that was top secret. And as far as I know, it's still top secret because I haven't seen it out anywhere. But, and in other words, it's not being used yet. It could be effective as a weapon in the battle space right now, but I haven't seen it. So, I'm not going to get myself in trouble. But so I'm going to just say I can't talk about it. But it could, I know it exists. Where they've gone beyond that, I have no idea.
Yeah. So it definitely sounds plausible from what you're saying. It just whether or not it's out there is a mystery.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I also wanted to bring up something else that I saw in the news recently. Earlier this month, the BBC released a news article titled "Biden Urged to Back AI Weapons to Counter China and Russia Threats." And in this article, it states the US and its allies should reject calls for a global ban on AI-powered autonomous weapons systems, according to an official report commissioned for the American president and Congress. Can you expand on the situation here and share your thoughts on the matter?
Well, I've been expecting this to happen. I mean, anybody who has been paying attention to the whole AI situation knows that there's been serious discussions about what to do in terms of a military sense of it since like the last 10 years, all right? So part of the issue is, part of it's like, okay, should we have autonomous weapons at all? In other words, weapons that can think for themselves. Mm-hmm. And that has been the big thing. But now it looks like they've gotten past that and they're really getting down to the nitty gritty in terms of like, they want to have them. They're talking about this treaty thing, but no one's going to sign it. I'm not surprised about that at all. It's all on the table. I think that they're going to pursue the idea of autonomous weapon systems, and that obviously that means AI. But to the extent that the AI is autonomous, okay, that's the real question. Because you could put limits on it. You could have a weapon that thinks for itself. Although, and I'm laughing because you have to realize I don't have that high of opinion of the people that are programming stuff, okay? I mean, I just don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, who's the moron that like put the internet components in a car so that people could hack your car? I mean, wow, what kind of genius was that? Because I'll tell you what, I got into an argument about it with someone one day, and I said, there's no reason for this. And I explained to them why you didn't have to have it that way. So there is a psychological condition, I should say, that exists heavily in the tech community, and I call it digital centrism. What is digital centrism? Digital centrism is when you can't think past the rubric of 20th century or late 20th century computer technology thinking, or that mindset. Everything's got to be done like a computer. And if you can't think outside of that rubric, then you've got digital centrism. So I'm looking at these things with the AI, and I'm not really worried about AI. Why? Because I've been studying AI for a long, long time, and there's people out there besides me. We already know how to kill it. I mean, you don't fear what you can kill, and I already know how to stop AI. Which you have to remember, or no, you don't know about. So let me tell you. Back around the same time I was working on that movie project, there were abortion doctors are being assassinated. There is a really big deal back in that time period because there's this big conflict going on, and I don't know if there was more than one person, but at least one person had like a death list that they published, and all these abortion doctors' names are on it. And they were just like shooting them, like, one guy got shot through his kitchen window. So that was the situation there, which then influenced the conversation about AI, because we're talking about 83, 84. AI was really feared back at that time period. You got to remember, this is only a little more than 10 years after David Bowie came out with this song about a supercomputer that ruined everybody's lives, but they built it because they thought they were going to save them. In fact, I think the song was called "Savior Machine." So the idea of robots taking over or computers taking over the world was very real and very, 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 very negative at that time. And I ran into a guy. He told me, this is like on him. He told me he was part of an organization that was also worried about AI, and they were going to do something about it. And what they were doing is they were tracking the developments, that were being released in terms of what was being looked at and by who in the news. And they were going to make a list. And they said, the guy was telling me their thinking was, hey, when they get to a point where it looks like AI could go, become real and become dangerous, they're going to start killing these guys. And the thing about it was that has not happened. So what that tells me is either the guys that were part of this organization didn't follow through with it, or they figured out what I figured out, which is how to destroy AI. I mean, there's an organization, I think it's IEEE. I can't remember the actual name of it. I haven't done anything with them recently. But they're the ones that are involved with transhumanism, and they also deal with issues about AI and et cetera. But I was on there like back in 2011, 2010, talking about, the fact that AI could be destroyed, and that people would ask me, how did you do it? And I go, well, look, I'm not going to tell you because I want the humans to win. I tell you about it, it's going to end up like on the internet. It's going to become common knowledge. Stored some database, and somebody's going to be programming AI to look for every reference to AI being destroyed on the internet. And then my telling you how to do it's going to end up in there. So that defeats the whole purpose. So that's the thing.
Fair enough. Well, I'm team human too, so perhaps keep it to yourself. And also, I guess that you mentioning that means that this podcast will end up on that database. So
absolutely,
hello to any AI listening. Hopefully you're enjoying the show, and if you are, make sure you subscribe and never miss an episode. You can find us on all your usual podcast sites: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and a whole lot more, including YouTube. And we want to hear what you think, so be sure to leave us a review. Just search Brains Byte Back wherever you get your podcasts. I do have another question, and
sure.
I'd be interested to know what these weapons or robots would look like, because obviously we spoke about Terminator early on in this call, and that being like a humanoid kind of robot. But I also remember seeing a video a few years ago where one of the most dangerous threats could be like a tiny drone with a facial recognition camera and enough explosive that if it flies into like your head, then it kills you. And they could release a swarm of these tiny drones and then selectively kill whoever they want within a city. They could choose gender or race or age or anything purely based on the facial recognition feature, and leave whoever they wanted untouched. And that seems quite scary. That seems almost scarier than the Terminator idea. Are there specific kind of forms that this AI could take that would be more dangerous than others, in your opinion?
Okay, this will give you an idea. This is I think. Okay, you're telling me about this swarm model of these little tiny things flying around that have facial recognition, etc. And I'm already thinking like, how would you stop this? And I already figured out how you would stop them. So
wear a mask.
Huh?
Wear a mask.
No, I'm not even gonna say, because some asshole's gonna do that. You know what I mean? Someone's gonna probably try to use something like that, and I don't want the countermeasure. Remember, I'm aware of the fact that everything we say and do, not everything literally, but in something like this, is ending up on the internet. So it's going to be in a dozen databases. You've got an international show. I don't know who the heck is listening to this thing. You know what I mean? So
we have a big following in North Korea, actually.
You do?
No, I'm joking.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know.
I don't think they get podcasts in North Korea. I don't think so. Anyway, I don't know. I've never.
Yeah. That is. Yeah, I get it. I know what you mean. But the bottom line is that, that I believe you with the swarm idea, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to help the people that might want to try to do the swarm. I want the countermeasures are best when they are not known, when they are secret. And so they think, oh wow, we're going to get them this way, and then it turns out nope, it blows back in their face. But like I said, I mean, as an example with the Star Wars thing, my mind works that way very easily. I mean, at this point, it's fast. Back then, it was a little bit slower, but we saw the obvious flaw to the whole idea of that, the way they were doing the starfighters back then. So, so basically, the other thing, to give you another idea, did you hear about the Chinese and their super soldier program?
I think I've heard something along those lines, but enlighten me because I don't think I know that much, and maybe our listeners don't know about it.
Well, basically, what happened was it was in the news because there's some people in Congress and the Pentagon that are really worried about the super soldier program, and I have to try to keep from laughing, but I looked it up on the internet, and I saw this video of these Chinese, and yeah, I'm laughing at them. They they have these different guns. Okay, they had like guns that could shoot around a corner and stuff. They were showing off all this stuff. They had about, I don't think it was like maybe 5 or so guys that were going through this demonstration in a mock-up battlefield area, and this is being done for like some big muckety mucks in the Chinese media and military. So I'm watching this, and I'm thinking, okay, this is what they're doing. So how could I stop this? And then like under 5 minutes, I'm laughing. I'm going, okay, I know how to stop this. And about everybody at this point that's in this thing, and I'm imagining, like that whole area being filled up with soldiers. Okay, I'm like, okay, everybody there's dead now. From 5 guys with the weapon system, I just figured out how to do. 5 guys armed with my countermeasure could kill 50 guys or more that was using these new weapons. That's why I'm laughing, because my hobby, a lot of people, they play like, Magic, the Gathering and all kinds of stuff. I sit around, and whenever a foreign country comes out with a big, oh, we got this new weapon that will do this and blah, 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 I'm always looking at it to figure out how to stop it. That's my hobby. Right now, I'm working on the Russians' Status 6 nuclear-powered torpedo thing. That's going to take a little bit more work, but the basic idea of how to stop that, I've already figured out. If we had to go to war against North Korea, talking to North Korea, how do we deal with all those guys that can come across, the demilitarized zone and try to attack South Korea? All right, I got that one figured out. There's a lot of things. A lot of my ideas are things that are not that high tech. And the reason why I don't do them that way is because part of my role that I see, because I'm not actually doing anything with the Pentagon, is if the United States is ever in a pickle where we had some serious things going down, I could contact them and say, here's your fix. All right. And it's only going to take you 20 days at the most to build all this stuff. Let's do it, because it would solve the problem. Probably less than that for in that time period. But, so that's what I do. That's my hobby. It's thinking those kind of things up, because I crack up. At first I was intimidated, like a lot of other people are, when they hear about, oh, this country's got this new weapon and what are we going to do? And I just got to the point where I started figuring out, well, what would we do? And I started looking at answers. Just like that attorney I was telling you about, where the robotic thing from with the military purposing. And I was given the idea of how could you stop this with non-military weapons? And I got it figured out in 5 minutes, and that's why they offered me the job. I didn't take it though, because there was something up with them that I think they turned out to be a cutout company for the CIA, and I was not. I wasn't down with trying to get involved with military things at that time. I was just trying to raise money to make my own little Star Wars movie. That's how the whole thing came out. I wasn't trying to kill people for real. I was just trying to make cool weapon systems so I could outdo George Lucas.
Well, it's good to know you're in reserve in case anything kicks off. Hopefully, you won't be called to action.
Right.
But yeah, I do have one last question to you. So obviously, you mentioned earlier that you're quite positive about AI, and there's not too much concerning you surrounding it. And that kind of leads into my last question, because news surrounding AI and warfare is understandably usually very negative and concerning. Are there any aspects of this technology that you think are positive and look good for humanity?
No, that's easy
It's kind of the answer
because,
I thought, but
well, yeah, well, I mean, it's like, warfare is not necessarily positive unless you have to deal with a really bad threat like, Japan or, and Nazis. But and other than that, I mean, warfare is not that great of an idea. And AI is not that great of an idea. It's even worse. So you combine AI with warfare, and you've got just nothing but problems unless you know how to stop the AI. So, that's my thinking on it.
you'll be fine. But I suppose the only positive that I could think out of all of this, which is a slight positive, is more robots in the battlefield, less humans in the battlefield, and hopefully
Yeah,
less
but
deaths.
but the problem with that is there's a backside to that, which is if it gets to that point, warfare becomes more palatable. It's
Yeah.
easy to get involved in a war.
Oh, now we're back to square one of no good.
Right, and that's
No good.
part of the problem. That's part of the problem. And then you got collateral damage. I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a situation where the robots just fight each other.
Yeah.
I mean, where you're gonna, there's all kinds of problems that open up, Pandora's box there. So
Well,
there's no real upside.
let's hope you're sitting in the wings, ready to step into action if any of this does kick off. But Marshall, if people want to keep in contact with you or reach out to you, how can they do that? Do you have social media or a website?
I kind of want to keep that on the down low, only because, I mean, when you talk about stuff like this, you get all kinds of weirdos that just come out of the freaking woodwork. And it's, so basically the people that really should talk to me know how to get a hold of me. I mean, they'll do it. But I mean, when you just open up, your communication or contact information, you'd be surprised what kind of things you end up getting. So
That's okay. Well, given how secret you need to be with all this information, I appreciate you coming onto the podcast and sharing what you can with our listeners.
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I
it's been a
love it.
pleasure. Awesome. Growing a company has many hurdles, from securing funding to expanding your business capabilities to ranking better on search. Each business challenge is uniquely complex. The solution to these challenges is growth-focused digital PR and marketing, and that is where our sponsor, Publicize, comes in. Publicize sets itself apart from traditional PR companies. It doesn't charge large retainers or churns out press releases whether you've got a newsworthy announcement or not. Publicize builds your business's online presence and gets high-quality PR and media coverage for startups and entrepreneurs who are priced out of a broken PR industry. And for a limited time only, exclusive to Brains Byte Back listeners, you can receive an SEO assessment as part of your package for any tier of service at no extra charge with this special promotion. To find out more, visit publicize.co/BBB. That's publicize.co/BBB. This is the end of today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this and you want to hear more episodes just like it, then follow and subscribe to Brains Byte Back wherever you get your podcasts. We're also available on YouTube under the channel of our publication, The Sociable. Just search Brains Byte Back and you'll find all of our episodes there. We really love hearing what you have to say, so leave us a review on iTunes or on any other podcasting platform to let us know what you think. You can also reach out on Twitter at The Sociable. And finally, go to sociable.co where you can find all our episodes and plenty of articles on topics just like this. Thanks again for joining us, and until next time, stay safe and stay healthy.